Hey everyone, I'm Amy Morgan, and welcome to Trade Nerd Legends, a series dedicated to the unsung heroes of global trade. Most people have no idea what trade professionals actually do, and yet they're the reason that our system works at all. They keep our shipments moving, they keep our companies compliant, and the world connected, often without recognition, even though their work touches nearly everything we buy, use, and wear every day. That is what we mean by trade nerd. Trade nerds don't just know the rules, they understand the reasons behind them. They believe that trade at its best connects people and ideas in ways that move the world forward. And that is what keeps them showing up through every disruption, every audit, and every regulatory curveball. And today, as trade becomes more strategic and more visible, more cross functional than ever, it's time to honor the OGs, those people who've been doing this work for long before it made headlines. And this series tells their stories to celebrate where we've been and inspire future generations of trade nerds. My guest today is the James Bond of the trade world. He travels the globe taking on these high stakes customs missions. He drives change at the highest levels. He's helped shape trade policy on nearly every continent. And now he's written a book that's part leadership playbook, part adventure diary. Lars Karlsson is a titan in global customs and border innovation. And over his 4-decade career, Lars has visited more than 170 countries. He's led transformational reform in over 120 of them. He helped architect what became the world's first AEO program, the first single window, the first paperless customs systems, and later advanced global capacity building through his work at the World Customs Organization. Today, Lars leads trade and customs practice at AP Møller-Maersk, but Lars isn't just an expert or an author. He's a futurist, he's an adventurer, he's an influencer, and he is a relentless champion of the trade community. If trade had a Hall of Fame, Lars would already be in it. So Lars, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much, Amy, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I hope everybody would say that every time I go on air somewhere, but I'm delighted to be here. This is my second club to join, the Trade Nerd Club that is initiated, and I really salute and really in any way support that initiative. My first club is my football and soccer club, Malmö FF, and I would never leave that one. So now I have two clubs, but great to be here, great to talk to you. And of course, this is a fantastic topic to talk about.
Yeah, well, because we're going to talk all about you today. But thanks for being one of our first Trade Nerd legends. When I was preparing for this show, I thought, wow, you know what's really funny is that you and we've been in meetings together, we've shared stages together, we've done webinars together, but I don't actually know how you started in this business. How did you end up here?
No, it's a wonderful question, and it's really as always the sliding door moments that happens to us in life, right? Think it was John Lennon who says that life is what happens to us where we are busy making plans. And in my case, it was actually starting in customs because I was busy with my academic studies, and I was also a sports person, so I was planning to become a sports professional. And my mother called me up and said, "You really need a job. You need a part-time job because we can't fund this thing that you're doing. So until you're making your own money, you gotta go and do something." And she actually told me that my cousin was in Swedish customs, working in customs at the border, and they needed temporary staff, and they would, bring you into an education and a training, and then you could go there. So that was the start of my career in customs and trade, and it's still the only job I ever applied for. So I'm really proud of that. Many years ago, more than 40 years ago.
So, okay, so you got into it and you obviously fell in love with it, but was there a moment when you started doing this work when you had that realization that you could actually change the world doing this?
Yeah, yeah, 10 seconds in, approximately, into my first job. No, but to be serious, maybe after 2 years, when I was doing this part-time job in breaks between the studies I was doing, I started realizing that that was a possibility for a career, because I was, again, a lucky moment for me was that Swedish Customs at the time, which was where I was working when I wasn't studying, was actually looking for exactly, in that case, it was IT engineers, which was what I was studying at the time, because they were computerizing and automating the customs processes as one of the first kind of countries in the world. So they were just looking for my specialty. And when I was then done with my studies, I actually stayed on and got another job and did that well and got a second job and got a third job, and then kept going like that until I was the Commissioner or Director General of Customs. So that was really how it started. And I think it's the way it is for many of us. But of course, I did see and realized, which I didn't do before I started in customs, that trade and customs is international, it's global, it's per definition exciting, and of course for some it's complicated and complex. But I just felt it as a challenge and something you need to do to actually make it better, and that's on the route I am.
So, okay, so you followed this path, you became the director general, and you've clearly had this you've left this really amazing legacy. And one of the biggest things that I knew you for before we really got to know each other was your involvement in launching those first AEO programs. I am super curious. I'm sure a lot of people are really curious what that was like back in the early 2000s. Following 9/11, CT-PAT in the US became a thing, and then there was this whole series of AEO programs that followed. What was that like for you at that time? How did you engage with that opportunity? How did you get involved with that opportunity?
Yeah, no, it's a great, another great question. And what really happened was that we had been working then, and I was first of all working as a regional manager, and then came to headquarters to our centralized customs leadership, and was leading basically the computerization program, the modernization program of Swedish Customs at the time. And I've also started to work internationally, so I've been leading a task force for European Union on risk management. So we had introduced risk management. Dutch Customs had introduced risk management, and several others. And I got the task with an international group of EU members to actually do risk. And as a consequence of risk, we started thinking about compliance and compliance management. What would we do with all of those targets that is actually low risk and compliant traders? How can we handle them? So we just got a team together under my leadership in Swedish Customs, and we worked with trade, and we worked with trade associations and trade organizations. We came up with this absolute unique idea at the time, and that's late 80s, right? So and late 90s, where we actually came into a national program, and we created this compliance management program, which we call the Stairway, which was basically a tiered AEO program with, again, conditions and benefits. And we launched it together with some really big company. IKEA was actually the first AEO company in the world. And we did that in January 2000. And the interesting thing with that was it worked extremely well, right? So we could see directly results from compliance improving. We could see directly results from trade facilitation going better. And also even enforcement, which was, of course, a priority for Swedish Customs, because AEO companies became our, full length arm into risks and various things.
Well, you really changed the game truly before trade compliance was fully baked as a function. So let's switch gears a little bit. I
Yeah,
am really excited to hear more about your book, When Elephants
yeah.
Fly. So first of all, great title. What does it mean, and why was now the right moment for you to publish this?
No, thank you for that. No, when elephants fly, it's really about nothing is impossible, right? Which is something I've been living as having as my kind of motto all through life. And the really it is about a saying that I learned in Africa 20 years ago. Of course, what people say, change will come when elephants fly. In some other countries, it's other animals. It could be pigs, or it could be something else. But the point is, it will not happen. And now we have seen it happening the last 6 years. The change is already here, right? So, and in fact, this is why the moment is the right one as well, because we have seen tremendous changes and challenges over the last 4, 5, 6 years. We have global pandemics. We've had crisis in the world. We've had black swan incidents in trade like the Suez Canal or Red Sea crisis, the Baltimore Bridge or Panama Canal draft. Many of these things, of course, are happening. And we will see more changes the next 5 years than we've seen in the last 50. So how do we handle that? How do we handle the fact that one of the areas of the world where data is really the critical thing, we weren't digitalized, and there were many reasons for why we weren't, but we're starting to get there. And that is a fantastic opportunity because data is the future. So the time was really now to ask the question, what do we do about it? How do we manage? How do we learn? How do we make sure that the next generation, what I call Global Trade 2.0, is better than the first one, not worse, better. And of course, we see a lot of things that is now driving the change. I think it was Steve Jobs, and I often refer that to said crisis is good because it's the only thing that make people change. So that is the reason why I wrote the book. It is a pro bono book, so whatever profit there will be from it will go to save the children from orphan children from war. And the point is really to share some of my experiences and also ask some questions and to others, and how can we actually manage this new situation, and how can we make the best of it and make sure that the next generation of trade is better.
Oh my gosh, I love all of that. I love where you're sending the proceeds. I love your philosophy behind your motivation around writing this book. Is there a story that you can tease everybody with? Maybe one of your favorite stories from the book for those of us who have to wait to receive it.
No, thank you. And I'll actually take a short story, but bear with me, from customs field, from one of the managers that became a mentor for me to some extent, but also I learned from. And for me, mentorship is super important, right? It's I've had fantastic mentors that share their time experience with me, and I've been a mentor for today. I think it's more than 25 people. I have 3 people for the moment I work as a mentor for, and there's a part of the book, a chapter in the book about mentorship as well. As an important instrument of leadership. But when I was in World Customs Organization, we of course traveled to all of these countries. There was a lot of projects, and at one time we went to a meeting in Lesotho, which is a very small landlocked country in the middle of South Africa, high up in the mountains. And we were 8 of us coming from Europe and North America and all around the place for this meeting, which was an African meeting. And we had been traveling all day. It'd been a really terrible mess of a flight. But when we got there, the Commissioner General and the Minister of Finance said, I want to take you to the border because, you're doing great projects. I want to show the progress of it. And we all thought, okay, we have a conference in a couple of hours, but let's go and do that. We were tired, right? So we went out there, took another 1-2 hours. And then he said, I see that all of you are tired, so you should get back to the hotel. And in the morning, he actually started, the Minister of Finance of this conference, by telling a story. He said, I learned something about leadership yesterday because we knew our guests were really tired, but we still wanted to show them how important the work they're doing in capacity building, modernization, cooperation is. So we took them to the border, and then we took them to a hotel. But when I brought the Secretary General, Michel Danet of WCO, into my car, he said, I don't want to go to the hotel. I want to go and see the officers. Where are the customs officers that normally works at the border? And I told him that they're at the old station. They are not here. 3 kilometers down the road, there's another road. So he said, take me there. You really sure you want to do that? I told him, and he said, yes. And he went in to every single officer, 25 of them, sat down for a long period of time with each one, asked them questions about their families, their work, what they needed from the WCO. 2 hours later, I took him to the hotel. He says to all of us 300 in the room, and he was sleeping all through. And to the story is the fact that he had terminal cancer at the time when he did this, and he was by far the oldest person there. So the Commissioner General and the Minister of Finance there said to us at the conference, he said, I learned something because when I got back to the hotel, I asked Michel Danet, why would you want to go to see my officers in the middle of the night, before midnight? You're the oldest guy. I see that you're tired, and all the other young people went to the hotel, and we understood that. And Michel Darnay answered him, when I was 11 years old, I learned from my mother, never forget where you come from. This is where I come from. And he said, look, this is really a story to remember because he was there as the highest official of customs in the world, and he still took time. There were no photo ops, there were no media, there were no reporting about this, but he still sat down with every single Lesotho custom officers and made their day, maybe their week, maybe their year by actually talking and listening to what they had to say.
That is a fantastic story on multiple levels. Um, Thank you for sharing this. I can't wait. I don't know if there's anything you could do to expedite these books, Lars, but
I'll talk to
uh,
Amazon.
yeah, please. You must know. You must know a guy. Uh, that is a fantastic story. Thank you for sharing that. That was amazing just to be in the room or to witness. Well, it kind of makes me now think. I read somewhere when I was reading about the book, and I can't remember if it was on the Amazon page or maybe it was on your LinkedIn somewhere, but I think you said that this isn't your typical like airport business
Yeah.
book. You know, what makes leadership in trade and customs so different? And how is this not your typical leadership airport business book?
Well, I think it's two things, and I really believe that. And one thing is, of course, that trade is amazing. Trade is good. Trade is driving prosperity. Trade is driving job creation. It's preventing war. It's certainly the best method to erase poverty if it's done the correct way. We've seen countries just move up the ladder of development because of trade, but it's also complex. It's per definition, as I said, amazing because it's international, it's global, it has all these aspects, but it's also technical, as you know, and all the people listening to this podcast knows, right? So it's complex and it's complicated. It's getting more and more complicated from various reasons that we know right now, and of course. Suddenly, customs and trade is in the middle of the international news. I always thought it should be because for me it's that strategic and that important. But it's also difficult then to manage it because you have to have all the skills of managing a business, but at the same time you need to learn and you have the leadership and management of that technical area you're in because it's very specific. And bridging that gap is not that easy. And we just need to start sharing more of those stories, by storytelling, by experience, by mentorships. So people can do that. And it's also often the case that people actually stay in our profession, not like many other professions. People actually get to become trade nerds and they stay in. It's really about learning. So for me, I often use again an African kind of philosophy I learned called Ubuntu, which is really about humanity. It's about people, right? So I am because you are. And that type of philosophy of learning from others, listening to everyone wherever you are, pick it up and try to use it to become better is for me what everything is about.
Oh my gosh, that is refreshing and exciting all at the same time. I've never heard of anybody writing a leadership book specifically targeting bridging the gap between the technical knowledge that we as trade folks have and the rest of our businesses or other parts of
Exactly.
government or whatever. I think that is so needed. Well, let's do something a little bit fun. So I want to try like a lightning round of just asking you a few questions where you just go with your gut. First thing that comes to mind. So first question then, what's something most people in trade don't know about you?
Ah, I'm a sports nerd as well, not only a trade nerd. And I used to do sports many kilos and years ago, semi-professional, on my way to be professional. I got an injury in my back, which prevented me to do that. And then I went in another direction, which was trade. So, anybody can ask me stories about football or handball, which I played, and many other sports as well. And I actually got a free ride and a ticket once in Berlin because a taxi driver had a flag from Besiktas, which is a Turkish Istanbul football team. And I said to him, "You're a Besiktas fan?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "I can tell you the players who played on the 2002 bronze Turkish national team in Japan." He said, stopped the car and said, "You can't." And I told him that. So I told him the 11 players. I told him who was from Besiktas. And he said, "You're never going to pay my car ever again." And then he gave me a mobile number to his brother who actually fixed tickets for him to the Derby in Istanbul. So yeah, it's good to know these things.
That's awesome. Um, Okay, what's your go-to travel ritual or hack?
Ah,
Maybe something that makes life on the road a little easier or more fun for you.
First of all, I always pack in 10 minutes, not more, doesn't take more than 10 minutes. I never, always only travel with a carry-on bag. A carry-on bag can, if you plan, if you do it properly, last for 10 days. And the third thing is that, again, when I go out, I actually try to get into, first of all, the time zone I'm going to. So there's no such thing as jet lag. It's only a mentality. If you sleep through the plane, then you can't sleep when you get to where you're going. So that's the third thing. And when I'm in country, I actually do three things. I eat local food, I drink a local beer, and I go to a football game, soccer game, locally, because then you get to know the country. So even if you have a little time when you're in a country, try to find something that you're interested in that is outside where you're there professionally, because sometimes we're only there for a couple of hours and a conference or something.
Right.
And the most valuable question that people ask me, you travel a lot. What is the best advice? It's always when somebody asks you, "Is this your first time here?" It could be a taxi driver, it could be a barman, a doorman, whatever. You always answer, "No, I've been here many times," because that will set the standard for risks. That will be the price of the beer in the bar or the taxi drive or whatever it is, because he knows you know what you're doing. So even if the first time, always answer, "No, I've been here many times."
Great tip. I'm going to use that one. Okay, so I think you already told us at the beginning, but what would you be doing right now if you weren't in this line of work?
Well, if I could, I would be playing sports, obviously. That's a little bit too late to get into the football team of Barcelona or something like that. It's out of the question right now. So I would probably be, I will be the tour manager for Bruce Springsteen.
I was not expecting that. I love it.
Fixing is my big hero in music. So, I've been to 35 Bruce Springsteen concerts in my life. So I would, want to go to more, and then the best way to do that would be be hired to actually fix his tours. And he's still touring. He's 76 years old on 23rd of September. So,
I
I
know that
still
guy
have a
is
career there if I want to.
that guy is an icon. That is amazing. What's your favorite Bruce Springsteen concert?
So is the favorite Bruce Springsteen? Sorry,
Concert? Which that you've been to?
concert.
Yeah.
Oh, that's easy. That's 1985, and that is the uh, famous stadium wrecker in Gothenburg, when actually the 65,000 people there actually wrecked the stadium. They had to rebuild the Crichton Stadium because it was there.
So cool. Okay, so now a few go-to questions. I ask every trade nerd these same questions. Um, so as you know, right? Every trade nerd has that one thing. Maybe it's a product, maybe it's a tariff code, or maybe it's a regulation that they'll never forget. What's yours?
Wow, that's a tricky question, but I would say it's more a pattern or a habit, because, and this is terrible, and I'm really, opening up here by saying that I classify everything I do everything I see when I go shopping with my wife. So I literally classify every product we put into the bin. So she hates that, of course, and I've done that for 35 years now. So whatever we take, I do the classification of the stuff we put from the shelf down to the basket to go to the cashier.
That is next level nerdiness. You know that, right?
I know. Yeah, I'm totally lost. I always say I'm a non-recovered workaholic, so I have to do it.
What excites you the most about the future of global trade? And what advice
Wow.
would you give for the next generation coming into this field?
What really is the exciting thing is that we are just in as I talked about before, right, a transformation that is phenomenal. So what we're seeing right now, and again, I would have maybe preferred customs and trade to be in the center of news for different reasons than the one we see, but it is happening right now. So obviously, it will change tremendously with data. It's all about data, because again, there were different reasons why trade wasn't really digitalized very early. It should have been, because it's standardized. There's a lot of data available, but we haven't done it. So for the moment, we are doing that, and it's going really quickly. And all of these macro changes is accelerating that development. So obviously, we will be doing what we are doing today totally different in 6 months, in 12 months, in 18 months. Artificial intelligence is, of course, going to totally change this. And today we do HS classification with AI, and I have a discussion with the best classification experts in the world who used to work for me at the World Customs Organization. Say, look, well, I will always be better than the machine, and I say, yes, you will, but you're not doing HS classification anymore. You're actually not, and those who are, they need support and help. So as an example, of course, what we need to do now is getting the application of how we manage data differently, how we can utilize that and transform how borders look like. So we become basically the enabler of international trade in the next generation instead of a blocker or a kind of a complication. And again, today in global value chains, goods move across the border 4 or 5 times during production. And that means that borders cannot be what it used to be.
I think you just re-inspired me, and I didn't even think that was possible. Thank you for that.
Happy to hear that.
Okay, final question then. In your own words, what makes somebody a true trade nerd?
I think we dream, we think, we breathe trade. And I think that, that is something that people learn, as I did as a very young, athlete that was supposed to go through an academic career and do something totally different, we discovered. And I think today it's even easier to discover that. To become a trade nerd is not really becoming or training to become a trade compliance expert. It's something that is just happening because it's needed. It is an area that is exciting, much more exciting than it sounds. And again, I think the common denominator is that people like us and people like out there that would really like to have something inspiring to do, look into the possibilities of actually working with international trade. Because, as I said, I think a trade nerd breathes, think, and dream about trade. And that's what we do. And that's actually a great position to be in. It's a wonderful career and wonderful profession. So go and explore it, guys.
I could not agree more. Lars, it's so clear why so many people in this field look to you for leadership and inspiration and innovation. So thank you. On behalf of everyone, on behalf of the Trade Nerd tribe and those future trade nerds, thank you for the impact you've made. Thank you for taking time just to share it with us. I'm really grateful. It means a lot.
Thank you so much. No, it's been a pleasure.